Welcome everyone to the long-awaited debut, Season 3 of Games People Play. Maybe only long-awaited by me, but nevertheless, Bernie Corbett, Games People Play. It still is Games People Play with Bernie Corbett. I remain Bernie Corbett after all these years, and very great to be back with you, back with my co-founder of Games People Play, Andy Bernstein, and at a new location for the program. Our new home is going to be here at Tony C's in the Seaport. Thank you to Wendy Galini, who is in charge here and has welcomed us in. And very appropriate that we're at Tony C's, because those of you that are fans of Games People Play may remember our very first episode in June of 2020 featured Reggie Smith, who played alongside Tony C. Reggie Smith was in center field opening day in 1967, and of course the great Tony C., the local boy that made good, was in right field for the Boston Red Sox. So that kind of takes us back full circle here as we look at the mural of Tony C. here on the wall in action for the Boston Red Sox. We're in action today. We have a very special guest, and it's not often we have somebody that we have a personal relationship with, but we certainly have that today, because the man that we have with us is Kevin Stevens. And Kevin needs no introduction to hockey fans that followed the game for a while. He was the best in the business at the position that I think basically that he outlined and defined, which was power forward, as a left wing on a couple of, in particular, really potent and productive lines for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's a two-time Stanley Cup champion. The numbers speak for themselves overall. 874 career games, 726 points. And what do they say about the Gordie Howe hat trick? Goal, assist, and a fight. 1,470 penalty minutes. And for a 5-year period with the Pittsburgh Penguins from 1989 to 94, 219 goals, 259 assists, 478 points. And oh, by the way, average 273 shots on goal, not afraid to shoot it. If you don't shoot it, it ain't going to go in. And 107, oh, by the way, the 178 penalty minutes. So he is a guy that defined the position of power forward and certainly impacted and influenced the game in a number of different ways. And we have Kevin to tell his really remarkable story here today. As I look at Kevin Stevens as we begin, fulfilled the American dream, and dare I say it, has survived an American nightmare. As we bring, does that really kind of bring it full circle, Kevin?
Yeah, I had it all. I got it all figured out, Bern. I have the whole thing circled from A to B, but yeah, all good. You know, great to be here. Thanks for having me. But yeah, it was a lot. You know, my career had the highs of the highs and the lows of the lows. You know, so but. Those times in Pittsburgh were good. We had some great teams, played with some phenomenal hockey players, and very, very fortunate, very lucky.
Indeed the case. Kevin, as we do in the Games People Play, we give you an opportunity to talk about your roots and your development, and then your playing career, and of course your pursuits now with your Power Forward Foundation. We go back to the beginning, born in Brockton, Mass, and raised in Boston suburb of Pembroke, and really grew up immersed in sports. Huge influence, really, right at the beginning. We got to talk about Artie. You became Big Artie, named after your dad. He was a larger-than-life character and a great athlete in his own right as a catcher in the Cincinnati Reds organization.
Yes, my dad was a big part of me. Like, he was a baseball and basketball guy, basically. He played, like you said, he was in the minor leagues with the Cincinnati Reds system, and he had injured his leg, so he wasn't able to pursue his baseball career. But for me to play really hockey was something that he couldn't skate. He never put on skates. Couldn't even skate, like, you know, in a family skate-a-thon. He couldn't skate. Like, he never knew how to skate so far. So basically, I learned sports through him, and I learned the way to compete and like to have fun. And he was always a baseball coach in our town. Like, I was a bat boy, but he always coached the Legion teams and the Babe Ruth teams. So he's always involved, and he taught me a lot. He taught me just, you know, go out and have fun. And I played sports 24/7. You know, when it was baseball season, it was baseball. When it was football, it was football. And when it was hockey, it was hockey. I never had like these 12, like now it is now. It's 12 months these guys play hockey. You know, you don't have that all-around athlete anymore. And I thought, like, that was the best thing about anything. I didn't have to do it all the time. I could play different sports, and you know, I was lucky. My dad was always there beside me because he helped me with a lot of the stuff that to where I got. You know.
He played goalie wearing boots, as you said, not skates, until you started to shoot a little bit too hard, and then you made sure he got the heck out of the net.
Yeah, he got out of there pretty quick. Those street hockey games down at, I lived off Jeanette Drive, was a dead-end cul-de-sac, and we just, back then we were able to, everybody just steps out of the house, and next thing you know, there's 10 guys down there playing street hockey, which isn't like that anymore. I can tell you that.
No.
You know, it isn't like that.
You
But
look
those,
around now, yep.
Those are the best times, right? Those non-planned events where you go outside, and all your friends come out, and you just start playing street hockey, baseball, basketball, whatever it was. Played a lot of it. It was fun.
And skated on the Cranberry Bog, which was
Yeah.
conveniently located right behind your house. You could flood that
Yeah.
and skate and learn the game.
Yeah, that was awesome. The Cranberry Bogs was the best. I could walk right across a little street there, and you know, I didn't have to, you know, just grab my bag and my skates and go over there with a shovel sometimes, and you know, we'd be plowing that snow out of there just to skate, and yeah, that was, you know, those times. Those are the times that you remember for a long time, Brent. Those are great memories, you know.
And Silver Lake Regional, where you attained athletic stardom, as you mentioned, as an all-around athlete, you had a choice to make early on about baseball.
Yeah.
You were your father's son. You were, they call it the tools of ignorance.
Yeah.
You were a catcher of
Yeah.
some note.
Yeah.
But I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, more of a good field, no hit.
Yeah.
And that made up your mind as
Yeah.
far as being able to pursue hockey and take the scholarship to BC.
Yeah, I think it was honestly, baseball was my first love. I love baseball. I love playing baseball. That was what I really kind of wanted to do. But I got a scholarship my junior year in high school to go play hockey at BC, and you know, I always, all my buddies were at BC. That's when BC was only, you know, U.S. born player. Like, it was basically Massachusetts kids. It wasn't even
It was inside of 128.
Yeah,
that recruited.
there wasn't anything. Anybody. All my friends at BC were my guys I played youth hockey with growing up. These are all, so we all kind of met there, and that's how it was. And it was great. That was something that, you know, I went to BC thinking I was going to play baseball too. You know, I was thinking my freshman year I'll play hockey, and then I wanted to play baseball. But we've had a pretty good season, and we went a little bit too further than I thought. And the baseball team was 6 or 7 games into the season, and I was like, there's no way I can go play baseball and try to hit a baseball without having spring training, you know, without getting acclimated to baseball. Just to jump into games, I would have no chance. So that's how my baseball career really ended, because the hockey season just kind of dragged into the baseball season.
You had an opportunity, invited to a couple of tryouts,
Yeah.
the Blue Jays and the
Yeah.
Phillies, and decided to bypass that for baseball. One question I had, I almost forgot from your youth. You played in the most prestigious tournament in all of youth hockey. That's the
Yeah.
Quebec Pee Wee tournament.
Yeah.
A guy named Mario Lemieux played the
Yeah.
same year as you, and Patrick Watt. Did you meet either of those
No.
two guys at all?
No.
You met him later on.
I met him later. I never got to meet him there. I wish there was Mario was still dominating that tournament.
Oh, my
Then I
gosh.
remember his name, but you know, it's like,
Little did you know.
yeah, crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. That's a great tournament too. That's still
Yeah.
a tournament.
Prestigious.
Everybody, yeah, it's just so much fun. That's a huge part of that. Was great time.
And a great time at Boston College. And
Yeah.
you were a 4-year, we want to stress that to people
Yeah.
who follow college hockey. A 4-year college hockey player that got better and better, developed your game to the point where you had the big breakout year, your
Yeah.
senior year, 35 and 35, 70
Yeah.
points in just 39 games. Became very close with your head coach, the great Len Siglansky.
Yeah.
Len, his wife Ursula,
Yeah.
and Timmy, who was one of
Yeah.
your teammates,
Yeah.
Lenny's son.
Yeah, that was
Big influence.
Yeah, Lenny was great. He was a great coach. You know, he's an old school type of coach. You know, and he wanted to play his way in the right way, and he was, you know, pretty disciplined type of guy. And as you see, I got in the penalty box a little too often, so he had to discipline me a little bit that way. But it was, yeah, he was great. You know, he was a Duxbury guy, so
Yep.
he kind of grew up in the town over from me. So he saw me play a lot of high school games, and I was able to go there to BC. And like I said, Timmy was my roommate for a long time, and it's just a great spot. BC was, man, that was, you know, what a great spot Boston College was. And like I said, I went 4 years. I needed the, you know, I remember my junior year, the Penguins said, you know, you want to come out and play. I said, you know what, I'm going to stay at BC and see what I can do and see if I can get better. And I always had pretty good hands, Bernie. I could score,
Yep.
but my skating, I needed a little work on my skating. I think I went 4 years at BC, then I went to the Olympic team. That Olympic year really helped. Jack Bladdock was our skating coach, really helped my skating, and we skated 2 or 3 hours every single day, and I became a pretty good skater. Straight ahead. I'm a straight ahead guy.
That's right.
There's not
Yep.
much turns in my
Yeah,
game, Brent.
north-south guy.
Yeah, straight ahead was good. If I could beat the guy up the ice straight ahead, I was good.
And the guy that you mentioned about the Olympic team and your centerman, Craig Janney at
Yeah.
Boston College, was a great distributor. Trying to remember, who was normally on the right side with you guys
Yeah,
at
like at
BC?
BC, it was like Greg,
Couple of different guys.
Dougie Brown. I played with Dougie.
Doug Brown.
My 1 year, Dougie Brown, Ken Hodge, and myself played. Yeah, that was
All
Kenny
NHLs.
Hodge, yeah, Kenny Hodge Jr. That was a good line. We had good players there. Then as it got older, we kind of rotated the right wing. It's kind of like when I was in Pittsburgh. with Martin, when we kind of played together, we always rotated right wing. Sometimes, most of the time it was Recchi or Tockett. You know, pretty good right wing.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Not a bad crop.
It's all about the company you keep, Kevin.
Yeah, it was good. It was, Craig was a great centerman. Like, you know, Kenny Hodge Jr. was a great college player and a great pro too.
Mentioned about the Olympic team and a number of guys that went on to the NHL from there with Tony Granato, aforementioned Craig Janney, and Mike Richter was the goaltender. Yeah. He'd go on to start him. And, of course, Brian Leach, who you spent that 1987, the 1 year he was at Boston College, was a pretty good year.
Yeah, he was one of those guys that came in and he kind of dominated college hockey just like they thought. You know, he was supposed to. And he came in, he did exactly what he was supposed to do. Then he went to the Olympic team. We became good friends. He was a great player. I remember so many battles with the Rangers when I was with Penguins, you know, and him and Bukaboom were on the other side playing against we were playing against our line. It was Leach was one of a kind, man. He could really play. Like, saw the game, moved the puck, did everything he's supposed to do back there. You know, he's a smart player.
Mentioned about the Penguins. Your original draft rights, pretty lightly regarded, 6th round pick of the LA Kings. Your draft rights got traded. Your property of the Penguins. Spent the year in the Olympics, which was another great development, like a 5th year almost, like a postgraduate year almost for your development. And then had the opportunity to turn pro. Spent a year in the old I, Muskegon, where you were very productive. Got to the Penguins, and you didn't waste any time. You scored in your very first game.
Yeah, I remember scoring early against Minnesota. I got a stuff one from. I was a rebound. I got a lot of rebound goals, but it was I like
strong to the net.
It's like where I get drafted. He goes, you get drafted by the Kings. Then I got a call that morning that the Kings had drafted me, and then to say, you know, welcome and all that stuff, and we'll watch, see what happens. And I had no idea even what they were talking about. I had no clue that I could even think about playing pro hockey. You know, it isn't like it is now. You know, Bern, like how there's so much build up and everybody knows everybody. You know, it wasn't
internet, attention.
It wasn't that. It wasn't the first round coverage of 7 hours on a Friday night. You know, that doesn't happen now. I mean, that wasn't back then.
No, definitely not the case. You came to a Penguins team at that time, which was clearly on the rise.
Yeah.
They were ascending, and a big part of it was Mario Lemieux. When you first got there, though, I got to give homage to one of my very good friends.
Yeah.
Your center, you had a pretty good line before you hooked up with Lemieux and Jaeger when you played with John Cullen and Mark Recchi. You guys were the option line.
Oh yeah, that was
pretty good option.
That was
some fun there.
Yeah, Johnny was great. Like, he's a phenomenal center. He was a phenomenal centerman. He's one of the best passers I've ever seen anywhere. You know, he had as good hands as anybody I ever played with. He just made plays. He was a smaller guy that said he couldn't skate, couldn't do this, but he just gets 100 points. You know, it's kind of like, you know, one of those guys that says, you know, you can't. But he made play after play and pass after pass. So we lived together for 4 or 5 years, me, him, and Rex, and we played together. We pushed each other. You know, now that I look back at it, that was such a great time. I had so many good friends, and that team was, like you said, we were building. We got, like, Mario was there. Then we got Coffey came in. Then we got, you know, Barrasso came in. Then, you know, Craig Patrick did an amazing job putting that team together, and drafted Yager. That didn't hurt either, you know. So Trottier came in. We had just, you know, we had great guys after great guys. Great assemblage
of talent there, and on to back-to-back Stanley Cups. You were right in the middle of that, and a couple of onlys for you: 50 goals, 100 points, and credited with 250 hits. The only player in NHL history to do that. And then the 123-point season that you had, your biggest breakout year in 91-92. And that was the most by an American-born player, the most by a left wing. And I like the fact that you outscored Gretzky. You didn't outscore Mario that year, but there's only 3 guys that ever outscored Gretzky, and you're one of them.
That's crazy. Yeah, I didn't know that either until someone told me that. But that's Gretz was like 55 years old then, so it didn't really matter. But that was those teams. Yeah, that was a great assembly. Like I said, our team talent-wise, you know, when you have our third line in '91 was Brian Trottier with Yager, and I think Jörn Hedin or something like, or Phil Bork. You know, we had that's our third line. So you know that as a third line, you got a pretty good team, and you know, we had some great players on that team. We really just kind of came in together, all came up at the same time, and we just kind of grew, and the team grew into a really good team, a really well balanced like machine. Like the I think in '92. No, the '93 team, the year we lost, Vern, that was our best team by far.
Might have been the best one.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. That was the team. That was the year we should have won 3 in a row. That was the year the Islanders beat us. Just like kind of the Bruins here, like game 7. You know, we're up game 6.
President's Trophy.
Yeah,
Yep.
President's Trophy, game 6. We're up 4-2 after 2 in the island. They come out, they pump forward in the island. They blow the roof off them. That place is loud, that island. They get 4 goals, they beat us 6-4. So now we go to game 7. In the game 7, anything can happen. We outshoot them 45-17 and we lose, you know. And I got hurt that's the night it broke
That
my
was the night
face.
that you
Yeah,
got
the
hurt.
first
We'll talk
shift.
about that in a moment. Yeah.
The first shift of the game. So that was,
Yep.
yeah, it's crazy how things happen, but you never want to get to game 7. So that's, you know, that's
Anything can
yeah,
happen.
anything, yeah.
Roll of the dice. That might have been the very beginning of that President's Trophy curse
Yeah,
with your
yeah,
Penguins that year.
yeah.
The 17-game winning streak. You set an NHL record that year.
Yeah, we were rolling. That was when it was a 5-minute overtime. And if it didn't score, we ended a tie. So that's you know, that was to have a 17-game win streak like that.
Remarkable.
Yeah, it's hard. We did some amazing things that year.
Oh, indeed the case. And mention about settling in on a line that was, you talk about beyond special, and that's where you got the 55 goals, the most by an American-born player, tied with Jimmy Carson. That just got broken last year by Austin Matthews. That record stood for a long time. But just to give us a perspective of what it was like to play with the talent like Mario in the middle, well established. But people forget because he played till, is he still playing now? He's 55 years old. Jagger was, I can remember Jagger at that time. He was just the kid that didn't speak English from Czechoslovakia that was 18 years old when he showed up. What was that all like, the chemistry that you guys found?
Yeah, it was interesting how that all happened because when Yarmer came in, you know, he didn't know, he didn't speak any English. He came over with his mother. His mother didn't speak any English, so it's like, it was nice. Yeah, it was nice that she came.
Should have kept her home.
I know. You can call her on the phone, but he was like, he brought her with her. She was obviously helping him get adjusted over here and whatever like that. But it took him a long time. Yarg's like, you know, when you say we're 18 years old, they put us on a plane. We go over to Czechoslovakia, don't know the language, don't know what's going on. And like, how do you expect, like, how you gonna feel, right? And I think he got put in that situation over here where he didn't understand the language, he didn't understand the coaches talking, he didn't understand any of this stuff. So, you know, till probably the second year, I think Craig Patrick went out and got Yuri Hrdina. He went out and got some checks. He went out and traded for Marty Straka, Hrdina. He built a little clan around Yarmer, which was the best thing that could ever happen to our team and to Yarmer, you know, because then he started to grow and learn the language a little bit. It took him some time, but when he had his checkmates there and they stick together, those European players, and he was that was a huge move for Craig to do that at GM, to get those guys and to help Yarmer kind of push him to that next level, you know, which didn't take him long. He
special.
I think he had 19 goals his rookie year, and we all knew that it was going to come to 60 pretty quick, you know.
Yeah, that's right, real quick, with a little help from his line mates.
Yeah.
And just how potent you guys were. Once again, another one of those onlys. You're one of only 4 NHL players, 50 goals and 200 penalty minutes. Keith Tkachuk, Brendan Shanahan, Gary Roberts are the other 3. But those years were your all-star years, and they were the mentioned the Stanley Cup back-to-back, and it could have been back-to-back-to-back with what happened in 1993. Always a flair for the dramatic too, Kevin, in terms of your production. I mean, one of the top playoff scorers. I mean, you're really one of the guys that, even with Mario and the presence of such a star presence on the team, 17 goals, 16 assists during that playoff run, 33 points. And did you always feel a little bit more comfortable in those situations, like, you know, the kind of the give me the ball mentality?
Yeah, I kind of like, I don't know what it was. I love the playoffs, and those pressure games, they're so much fun, you know. It was something like, you know, all the buildings are full, everybody's trying to do the same thing. We're all trying to win Stanley Cups, and had some great playoff games, and, you know, had some great teams, scored some big goals. I think the biggest series game I've ever had was in the playoff, was 2-2. We were playing the Bruins. We had to beat the Bruins both times.
Game 5 with the Bruins.
Yeah, we had to beat the Bruins twice. Both times we won the Cup, we had to beat them in the Eastern Conference playoffs. And we had, Game 5, I was able to score 4 goals in the Garden when the series was tied 2-2. And then we went on to win that series in 6. But that Game 5 in Boston, where I had 3 in the first period and 4 in the game, was that was a good remembrance. That was a great game, and, you know, just, I don't know, that team we had, you know, it's a pretty good feeling when you have a team that you know you can win every night. You know, I think our team was built so that You know, we knew every game we went into, we could win. You know, that's a great feeling. I've had teams where it wasn't like that, but that team in Pittsburgh, we had confidence that whoever we played, wherever we played them, we played our game, we could beat them. You know.
Well, speaking of confidence, we got to get to, and it's still noted and celebrated as referred to as the guarantee in the history of Pittsburgh sports, and one of the ones in the history of sports. I mean, you were 3 years ahead of Messier making the guarantee when the Rangers were down to the Devils. But give us a little insight about that. You're down 0-2, and you're going to be playing on the road. For you, it's welcome home. You're coming to Boston. But you stood up there kind of like Joe Namath did before the Super Bowl III and guaranteed it. What went into that? Were you really that confident?
I don't know if I was that confident. I was kind of like, I was so mad after the game. I think that was the biggest thing, Bernie. I was so frustrated, man. I remember Ruzicka scored the overtime goal in game 2. We were up 5-3. They got 2 power play goals tied at 5-5. I think Neely got both the goals tied at 5-5. Then Ruzicka scored, and I was kind of chasing him, and I was right behind him. I couldn't get to him. He chipped the puck, and I saw the puck roll in by about that much. I almost threw up. I was like, oh, now what now? And then I came in the locker room, was so mad. The reporters, they know I can usually say something pretty stupid, so they came after me.
You're an easy target.
Yeah, I'm an easy one. So they come at me and like say, I said, we're going to win the next 4 games. And I just don't, I believe in our team. And it turned out that we did, thank goodness for it. It was one of those things that you don't even realize to say it till someone prints it.
Right.
It's like, I said that?
Did I really say that?
And, I think all the guys kind of fed off a little bit. They liked it too. So it was, we're lucky enough we did it. So.
And you played, as you mentioned, a prominent role. You saved your best right in the midst of that series with your 4-goal game after making the guarantee. And you had a lot to do about being able to cash that check.
It's
actions speaking louder than the words.
We're just trying to play one game at a time, and I think that's the biggest thing. Everybody talks about you get down 3, you get down 2-1, whatever it is. It's really one game. If you can ever get that mentality into your head, the desperation. You think you have desperation, so you are desperate, right? It's a weird thing. It's like
experience is a hard teacher.
Yeah, it's hard to when you're up 3-0, everybody says you got to close them out. But the other team somehow is more desperate than you, just because that's the way it is, right? It's weird how they have to win. You don't have to win, but you think you're desperate, but you're not as desperate as the other team. It's just the way it is. It always seems like that. Like tonight, Toronto's going to play Florida again.
Right.
Who's going to be? Who's going to be? Florida's going to say they're the most desperate team, but it really is. Toronto's going to be more desperate because they can't lose, right?
Yep.
You always have that, but you try to balance that way. The desperation is huge, but you got to really pull it together, and you got to pull your shoes up, and you got to win the game. But it's one game. You just got to think about it. If you can put your mind into just winning that one game and doing everything you can to win that game, then you got a good shot at it.
No question. I was going to say the team that's usually staring at the golf course is the one that's the most desperate. Trading the stick for the clubs.
That's the one. It's true.
That's right.
That's just the way it is. It's just the mental part of your brain that works that way.
You just referenced what I referred to as I was doing my notes to get ready. I'm just going to say the collision. And interestingly enough, May 14th, 1993. Today is the 30th anniversary of that event.
Oh wow.
And for those that may not be familiar with it, it's be careful if you go to YouTube to watch it. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to issue that disclaimer for fans of the games people play. But as you mentioned, first period, Rich Pilon of the Islanders out of the penalty box, skated in to put a hit. You're coming in as the F1 there.
That was F1.
The F1 at about 100 miles an hour, which is how you played the game. You didn't veer much from 100 miles an hour. That didn't vary. But your recollection of it in terms of piecing it together 30 years later.
It was basically, like you said, 10 seconds in, I got a penalty with Delgado. They won their wingers, and we kind of went off. And I don't know what we were doing. It was something, they called it early. So 10 seconds in, that's early. So I got a penalty.
Pretty early. Drop the puck and go to the box.
Yeah, that was it. And then, so I was coming out of the box. Game 7, first shift, and I see Pilon coming around the net. I see him kind of coming around the net after I step out of the box. And then, like I said, I took a V-line to him. I battled with him for years and years. You
had a little history with Pilon.
Me and him, he was a tough, big, strong Indian kid, really tough and dirty. One of those guys that just played the game on the edge, and he was good at it, So I seen him coming, and I like I said, I was F1 coming pretty hard. And if you look at the hit, I really got him. Like,
you did.
Yeah.
You got him.
Everybody watches me hit the ice, but he went backwards too. I got him good, but
He went flying about 15 feet, Kevin. Truth be told.
Good, but what happened? He had the shield on. He doesn't always wear a shield. He had some eye tissue, so he was wearing it some days and didn't. But I hit his shield. Kind of jumped at him. When I jumped at him, we collided, and I hit his shield. I hit my temple.
It was a mid-air collision.
Yeah, so it was mid-air, and I couldn't. Once I hit the temple, it knocked me out, so I couldn't put my hands down. So I basically just came down face first, and then I didn't really know. I woke up kind of on the ice, and I just remember going in the locker room. There was a million doctors in there, and I was hoping I could get back to play. They were stitching me up, really. I think I got 17 stitches on my eye from the shield, so they were stitching me up, and there was a bunch of doctors in there. I hear a couple say maybe I can go. I wanted to go back out and play, and they were like, I don't know, I don't know, so, and then the eye doctor came in and felt on my eye. I guess my eye was all crushed in here,
Oh, gosh.
So that was the end of it. So I had to go to the hospital. So off we went, me and Suzanne. Everybody in the world's watching the hockey game. When I was in the hospital listening to it on the radio, and we scored 2 goals. We were down 3-1 with a minute left. We scored 2 goals with the goalie pulled to tie at 3-3. Then we went in and we lost. David Volek scored double overtime. So it was, but that team was loaded with players. We were like, we get through there. That team in Montreal beat LA.
They had a miracle run that year with Patrick Waugh.
Yeah, they won like 10 overtime games. If we would have beat them, we always had one series that was tougher, and that was the one. We would have got through them. We could have beat those teams skating backwards. We would have beaten. That team was really loaded. But there's always, like I said, you get to those game 7s, anything can happen. That's what happened to us. And that kind of ended that little run there.
Glenn Healy, the goalie, described it. He was the one that was the nearest. He said it was like if you stepped on a potato chip.
Yeah.
Was how the graphic way that he described it. Shattered most of the bones in your face. Extensive reconstructive surgery. You had an incision below your hairline from ear to ear that involved 100 stitches. And they literally, it sounds like science fiction, peeled back the skin to reassemble the facial bones and metal plates that were inside.
Yeah, they pull everything. Yeah, they pull everything down and they kind of do the surgery. So my head was like really big, like for a while. I remember my teammates coming in the next day after the surgery, and they didn't even know they were in the same room, and I couldn't really see for a couple of days. That was the worst thing. It's like, because my eyes, everything was swollen up. I had stuff on my eyes and stuff. So it was a process. It was a surgery that was, they were pretty confident that things would work out all right. But I had great we have great doctors there in Pittsburgh, and I was very, very lucky to have those guys there, and I had a lot of support. So it was a crazy night. It was a crazy event that happened, but it was all it's part of the game, I guess. You just kind of play as hard as you can and see what happens, and sometimes it works out the right way, and sometimes these things happen.
Catastrophic incident, and when you look back, it was your first exposure to painkilling medication, which was an absolute essential to you to try to survive from day to day.
Yeah, I think that was right before that. You talk about that part of it, right? A few months before that, I kind of tried that.
Well, you had the incident in Manhattan.
I had the incident in Manhattan, which that kind of opened up the can of worms. The incident in Manhattan happened when someone handed me something. It was like cocaine. It was cocaine. I didn't know what it was. I was 28, and I never did a drug. I never even really knew what drugs were. I didn't even know what I was getting into. But I did it, and I made this decision that night to try this stuff in a bar with the guys. I didn't, I had no clue. Someone handed me something, and it wasn't my teammate. Someone else handed me something, and I tried it, and it kind of changed a little path of my life for a while, because I had no idea about what it would turn me into, the addiction stuff, and the path it would take me, because I didn't know anything about that. I thought it was just going to be, but it changed the chemistry of my brain. And then, like you said, 2 months later, I get hurt. Already opened up the can of worms with the cocaine, right? So now I'm kind of like I'm an open field here now. I don't, and then the pain medication comes in, and that kind of, I needed that anyway, so it wasn't like I was feeling anything. I didn't know, I know now, but I didn't know that. I had no idea what was going on then. I just tried to take the pain away,
And it was really, you mentioned, as a trigger, and of course, and I knew you as being around the hockey scene in Boston, BUBC, and just knew you socially a number of times. You were a life of the party guy. You liked your beers.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of an addictive personality there that was triggered by these two incidents. One in March of '93, and then, of course, the injury. but there was kind of something that was below the surface,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden this kind of
Yeah.
triggered it, kind of lit
Yeah.
the fuse, if you will.
Yeah, that's what happened because like I said, I like to have a good time, whatever, but I never put,
Always, yeah.
never put anything in front of it. You know, hockey, I never put stuff in front
Right.
of my job or my life, or,
Sure.
So now things are starting to happen that shouldn't be happening, things, putting stuff in front of my hockey. Like if I told you a million years, nothing would get in front of my hockey ever. And hockey was my life. Like, I had an addictive personality, but I did things to be a better player. I used to get up in the middle of the night and ride the bike because I know other guys weren't,
Right.
So just
Give
to
you
get,
the edge.
just to get that edge, right?
Yep.
I used to do things like that. I do crazy things just to have an edge, and it helped me in a lot of ways, right? But this was something that I didn't really understand what was going on. It took me a long time to get, not a long time, a few years to get to the point where it was starting to affect like my decisions. This is making a lot of my decisions. I'm like, what is this thing? What's happening here? Why am I more concerned with something else than my hockey and not, doing the extra stuff you have to do to be one of the best? You got,
Which you were always willing to do.
Yeah, I was always willing.
Committed.
Now, I don't have that drive. This is taking it away from me. I have enough to get by, but not to be a good player. And now it's starting to affect my game and everything else.
And it affected your game from that point. The trade to Boston, it seemed like it would have been a good thing at
Yeah.
that time. I mean, the local boy comes home, but once again, there were demons at work.
Yeah.
Your production in Boston, traded to Los Angeles, to the Rangers,
Yeah.
and the production diminished over the next 7 seasons.
Yeah.
Only one 20-goal season, only 2 40-point seasons. Dramatic drop
Yeah,
from
yeah.
the production that you had because of
Yeah.
all the other things
Oh,
that
yeah.
were distractions
Yeah.
and interference that got in the way.
Yeah, you can look at my career. It was 7 years like this. Then that night in New York, right? Then it's 7 years like this, And that was the reason why. Like I should have went, like all my career was 30, 40, 40, 50, 50 that night in New York. 40, 30, 20, 10, 10, 10, out of the league, basically, It should have, if I ever don't make that decision in New York, who knows? 50, 60, 60,
Hall of Fame?
Yeah, it should have been. Yeah, it should, yeah. It
You were on the
should've-
road to Toronto.
Yeah, it should have been. Like it really, the effect of that night took a toll, and it took me right out of the league. Basically, and that's what addiction does, right? It has nothing. You're not trying to come on. I'm not trying to be a bad player. I'm not trying to be. It makes you like. It made me accept being average, right? Like at one point, I said, I could do this, and I could play on the third line and be average in the league, and just get by. That's where this thing takes your brain. It gives you that. You're not that good anymore. You can. It gives you that false that thing in your brain where you're saying, won't let you get over through that hump or get over the top till you deal with this. And I never really dealt with it the way I should because, you need to stay clean and sober. If you're an addict, you need a program. You need a way to stay sober. You can't. I used to go into rehab, Vern. I get in trouble, whatever. They put me in rehab for 30 to 60 days. Try to get clean, try to do the best they can in the league, whatever. But then all I'm thinking about is getting back playing. I'm not thinking about my sobriety. I'm thinking more about when can I come back
on
and
the
play ice. That's what I do, right? That's what I want to do. I want to play hockey, but then I come back on the ice, it's action again, right? Action. That's a death sentence, really. It's like all the action, all the excitement, and after the games, and how you gonna deal with it. I didn't have a way to deal with it. I could hang on, but hanging on doesn't work that long, When you're an addict, you can't hang on. You need a program. You need a way to live, right? You want to live happy. You don't want to hang on and white knuckle things, and that's a tough way to go because that's the way is a disaster waiting to happen. And that's what kept happening. The disaster. I kept getting back into the action, not working on a program, and then disaster,
And it really went from the athlete that you were with pursuit of excellence to an acceptance of mediocrity, as you mentioned. It's okay if I'm going to be on the third line and I can get by and kind of go through the motions there.
And that's what it does to you. Yeah, that's what it does.
As you're quoted as saying, Kevin, you had it all, and addiction takes it all.
Yeah, that's what it takes.
And it takes until. And of course, for you, a couple of moments you talk about, what is the moment that you hit bottom? Well, actually, One was in East St. Louis, Illinois,
Yeah.
in 2000. The arrest and your recollection of that and that night when you just you're really in a bad place. You were injured and not playing, so you had that idleness that kind of put you probably wandering away to a place that you never should have been.
Yeah, no question about it. That night was terrifying, probably more than anything that happened. It was you get yourself in a bad situation, and next thing you know, you hear that knock on the door. It's the cops, and it's kind of like you're in a bad spot. And you know what? It was probably those cops might have saved my life that night. I was with some bad people, and you never know. But it was. It still wasn't enough for her. It's weird, that should be enough. Why isn't that enough, right? It's like the addiction is so strong. Like why isn't that enough?
That should have been rock bottom.
Yeah, it should have been, right? Yeah,
that should have been the ascent. Should have begun right in East St. Louis that night.
And it didn't. It didn't. I couldn't accept whatever the defeat. I didn't have a program to stop it. Really, I was stuck in a big addiction problem, or I was in the middle of the addiction cycle, and it's more powerful, and it's not about willpower, because I had a lot of willpower. To get to where we get to play hockey, you need some willpower, right? Mm-hmm. So I had that. I had all these things. It's not about willpower. It's about a program, and it's about like a higher power. It's about people. It's about helping. It's about having people reach out and let them help you, and accepting that. You know what? You're an addict. You have to accept that. You have to throw in the towel. And I wasn't willing to throw in the towel completely,
You weren't ready to surrender at that point. And fortunately, you talk about a guardian angel in your life. People from Boston, and I know he's one of your great heroes, one of mine too, from my youth. Derek Sanderson was the quintessential, the swagger of the Big Bad Bruins. And Bobby Orr rescued him. Your rescue story is Mario Lemieux. Yeah. And you went to Philadelphia. You actually finished the career back in Pittsburgh, but Mario was there for you. He hired you as a scout.
Yeah.
You were a scout for the Penguins, part of their Stanley Cup team in '09. You had a chance to coach your sons growing up, and everything. Once again, life seemed to be good.
Yeah.
And then the incident that prompts you to be here today, which did turn out to be rock bottom for you to begin to ascend once again and rise up.
Yeah, Mario is huge, and he's always been there for me. He's always. He sent planes for me to go to rehab. He's done a lot of things to really try to help me and try to be the best person he can. And he's still a really good friend. And he's done a lot to help. And he's always been right there when needed. And it's kind of like till you let people in, Vern, and let people help you. You can't be helped. The guy that doesn't want to be helped, you can't be helped. It's just like you got to be ready. And I think finally, like you said, that the night that.
The arrest.
Yeah. I was in Weymouth, and I just had a little with my girlfriend and a little baby. And, it was like 8 years ago, almost 7 years ago.
This was May of 2016, 7 years ago.
Yeah, and it was. That was an interesting day. I had no idea that this was happening. It was kind of got myself mixed in with the wrong crowd of people, and they were watching them. Then they,
FBI was involved. This was federal.
Yeah, the way it was federal is because. The people they were watching way up here, why I wasn't dealing with, but the guy, my buddy, the kid, I was in pain. I was on pain pills, so I was getting pain medication from this kid that was dealing with these people. So they had these people watching, and this kid that I was on. Then they heard my voice talking to this kid. They said, "Oh, that's Steven. Let's try to get him." And then they, obviously they want you to help him, and I didn't know who I was getting it from. I can't like help you if I don't know the top people. I didn't know those people. So that's how it became federal, and that day it was no good. And then from there, though, I went and sat in jail for like 7 days in the federal prison, which is complete.
Wow.
Complete. Like from winning the Stanley Cups to sitting in a federal prison. 7 years later, whatever it was. But it was that was a day that kind of I came out of there and. I had to do something. I had to make a choice, and but I didn't have to make. I didn't make a choice before. Like, why am I? Why this isn't even the worst thing that's happened to me.
You still had to determine that. To move forward.
I had to. I had
to power forward, so to speak.
Yeah, I did, and that was the day that I kind of And when I got out of jail, I had people there to help me, support me, and I let people in my life, and that was the biggest thing. Is probably letting people in your life to help you. Let someone else show you how this works, you know, and how you can get clean and sober, how you have to do it. And that. I was very lucky and fortunate to have guys there waiting for me.
Well, one guy that was waiting for you was an esteemed former federal prosecutor, was the head of the NHLPA. I got to know him very well as the first director of college hockey. And we're talking about Paul Kelly. He maybe even a bigger guardian angel than Mario.
Yeah.
He's right, probably. I think they're tied for first anyway. It's a photo finish. But Paul got involved as your attorney. And 1 year later, right over, not too far from where we are here, in federal court in Boston, you entered a guilty plea in federal court. And the judge, with the outpouring of support, was unbelievable. I mean, I can't stress enough to everybody that may know about Kevin or not, most beloved teammate, I think, of every guy that you ever played for. I remember saying to Andy Bernstein, when Andy first got involved with you, I think if you, I don't know how many guys you played with in your career, a lot. But if you polled all of them, I think Kevin would be no lower than second on everybody's list of the best teammates they ever had. And these people supported you to the point that the judge showed leniency with 3 years probation, a $10,000 fine, and community service, which came to your relationship with Andy, and Cross-Check Radio, which was a big part of your community service to give back with rehab and recovery.
Yeah, it was all good. You know, like I said, I met Andy too for with that, and we did a show for 2 or 3 years or something. It was really good. It was fun. We had a great time doing it, and had a lot of good guests, a lot of good people, and but that helps. Like, that was part of the sobriety. We were helping people, right? I think all of us like to help people. I think, you know, I had a good group. My sister Andy, and we had a couple other people that would pop in and help us too. Alex Bezanson would help us, you know. So we had a great bunch of guys showing up, and it was just part of it. I guess, you know, I was lucky. The judge, you know, like, we usually in federal court, you know, it goes like this. Okay, you did this. Okay, you get 3 years.
Right.
There's no negotiation. Not like state court.
No, it's not negotiable.
There's no negotiation. When you go in there, you're on pins and needles. I had my bags packed to go to jail, basically, you know, because they take you that day. They don't. There's no come back in a couple of weeks, and you can get ready.
We're going to let you go home for Christmas. Exactly.
You know, so it's either they're taking you or he's going to let you. My lawyer had no idea. We had no idea what he was going to do. None.
Really? Complete roll of the dice.
No, you don't know anything. And like, usually, like, I've been in trouble before in the States, and I know what's coming. I know I'm going to get 6 months or whatever. I know what's going to happen. This one in federal, I had no idea. My mom, my sisters, and all my friends are there, and it was like, they had no idea. You know, they're waiting to see what's going to happen. And like you said, lucky he said, I'm not going to keep you in jail. But you're gonna do some work for me. You know, you're gonna work. You know, and you're gonna get out and talk to some of these schools and talk to some of these kids and bring the awareness of this addiction and this thing that's going on to people. And I think the biggest thing with our radio show or with me getting out speaking to people is you're getting to people that don't want to hear you. You know, so like when you go to an event and an assembly and they put all the kids in there, some kids are sitting there saying, who is this jerk? Why is this guy here? Like, well, how many times, but they listen, right? They may hear something, even though they don't want to listen. You know, they may hear something that I say that is affecting them and their family, or something they see, and their mom and dad and their parents, or something maybe they can learn from that helps them. You get into people that don't even want to listen to you. You know, that's the biggest thing about getting out there and talking to people is, you might not affect all the people, but people when they assemble people, they have to listen, right? So you may hear something that might help some person that doesn't need to be thinks they need to be helped, you know. And I think that's the biggest thing. And awareness is huge. It's so Bernie, around here, it's so dangerous out here. There's so much stuff going on. It's like there's no second chances, you know. You can't, like, I have 24, 26, 25, and 21-year-old kids. And they're in the middle, like, living. One lives in New York, and one's at Yale, one's playing hockey. So they're in the middle of all the people that like to have fun and whatever.
A lot of temptation, a lot of distractions.
And there's you can't make the one mistake. You can't be having a few beers, and someone says you want to do this line of cocaine, and you know what's going to be in it is going to be fentanyl, like Jimmy Hayes, right?
Right.
Yeah, come on.
Tragic story.
Yeah, the worst, right? The worst among the worst, you know. But that's everywhere. That's happening all over the place, you know. And it's everywhere, Bernie. It doesn't pick and choose. That's the thing. you know.
Judge O'Toole had a reputation as a hardline guy, and he showed you great leniency for you and gave you the opportunity, and you got into the program in terms of the addictive recovery program. A guy named Ron Hayes, I know, was very influential. He's noted driving 30 miles to get you to meetings at 7 in the morning. It's amazing, great influence.
There was a lot of good people. I've had
a lot of people along the way.
Yeah, I had a lot of people like just the community of Alcoholics Anonymous that like I run with or I hang around with or is very, you know, we can do the best thing ever. We can do anything we want to do. You just can't drink and drug like that. You know, we go play golf for 36 hours. You can do everything. You can do everything. You just can't do that. You know, and that which is after a while, if you're around the people that are trying to do the same thing you're doing, it's pretty easy. You know, you don't even think about it after a point. Yeah, it helps a lot.
No, indeed. Kevin, a couple of other questions that I have here, just overall perspective. Your early influence, you're born in 1965, so you're kind of halfway between the Orr era. I'm a little older, 5 years older than you. But the Miracle on Ice must have had a great impact. You were at a very impressionable age with Mike Eruzione in the 80 Olympic as a big influence on you and your generation of players that became NHL players.
Yeah, that 80 Olympic team that's still my favorite memories of anything, you know, anything in hockey. Like, that might have been better when I was playing. You know, when I was playing, I have those memories of that 80 team, being the Russian team, then having to win. The hardest thing I think was having to win the next game.
Absolutely. Get up and beat Finland in order to get that gold medal.
Yeah, you know, that's and that's so hard to do. That's the emotional, like the biggest emotional thing that's ever happened in our country, really, in sports, right? And then you got to get up the next day and try to beat Finland. It was pretty good, you know.
A good team.
So it's not easy.
Always.
Yeah, you know. So it's
great lesson.
Yeah, so it was a miracle. You know, when they say the miracle on that team, that was unbelievable. That was those goals. That was something. I'll tell you that much. You know, it still seems like yesterday. Still, when you see it in your face, you know, it's like
when you go back and watch the highlights,
awesome.
It's like we never left.
Awesome.
And of course, you got to be an Olympian in 1988 and had the opportunity to represent your country. And great pride with that experience. And just the Penguin experience, if you will. I mean, this was all new to the Penguins. They were born in 1967 when the NHL doubled in size.
Yeah.
But what was it? The Igloo became the place to go in Pittsburgh, and that must have been great to be riding that wave as one of the guys in the Penguins at the Stanley Cup champion Penguins. Phenomenal.
No, Pittsburgh was phenomenal. What a great city Pittsburgh is. It's like a phenomenal sports scene. The people are so nice. That city was so hockey like driven. When we won that first cup, man, I remember. You know, when we used to go there. I go to the games. We used to go. Always there early, 3:00, 3:30 of the game. And there was 5,000 people in the parking lot. You know, that was crazy.
Tailgate.
Tailgate.
Like a Steeler game.
Yeah, it was
Tailgate.
crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. You couldn't even get into the rink, and it was just a madhouse. And I remember the first cup we won. Then after we went on the road, you know. So we came in about 4:35 in the morning from. So in the airport, there was 60,000 people in the airport at 5 in the morning. You know, it was like we couldn't even get. We had to go on these. They put these buses. They called these buses in. We had to go and the buses couldn't even get to where we had to get. We ended up on all different parts of Pittsburgh because the roads were so congested at 5 in the morning. There was nowhere to go. So we ended up at the west side. One bus was at Mario's house. Another bus I think ended up at Barasso's house. Like we couldn't get down to our house, and we couldn't get to our car, couldn't get anything. You know, couldn't even drive. You know, we had to go back to our cars 2 days later. It's crazy. Yeah, it was crazy.
You played for some amazing coaches. Badger Bob Johnson, that first Stanley Cup legend. Scotty Bowman is the legend of hockey, and Eddie Johnston, who was a previous guest for us here on the games people played. Your recollection, just a thought on any of the guys that you played for. You had some great ones there to influence your career, Kevin.
Bob Johnson was great. Like he was such a different type of coach. You know, he was the old school. You know,
great day for hockey.
Yeah. Sit there and pass the puck. You know, back and forth to each other like when you like we're at camp at 8 years old. You know, skating around, passing it, blow the whistle, skate backwards, passing. Like, what are we doing here? You know, but he was the only way he could get away with it. Like he just had that personality that everybody trusted him. You know, it was like must be doing something. He must. You know, this is gonna work somehow. You know. And then the next thing you know, he and EJ too. Eddie Johnson's the best. He's the guy that traded for me from Pittsburgh. He tells me all the time how he made the trade. I guess he traded Anders Hockenson for me. He said they put 3 guys up, and he took me because I was from Boston. He saw me a little bit. He knew I was a big kid. He said he thought he could score, so he's like, he takes the best. And then Scotty was a phenomenal coach too. Scotty was like, different than Bob. Scotty was a lot tougher. Bob was more a hands-on type. Scotty just shows up and like, let's hammer these guys. Let's do it. And this is the way we're going to do it. And this is the way I'm going to coach it. And let the guys, you guys
Treat you like men.
Yeah,
Pro
you guys,
coach.
yeah, you guys play. If you play well, you're going to play a lot. Scotty's one of those guys that really rode his big guys a lot. But he was a good coach. He really, he got the best of our team.
No question. You had some special people
Yeah.
there. You look back, it might be difficult, but greatest moment or greatest memory in your hockey career? Is there one that stands out, or a couple that might be tied for the top?
Yeah, I think the first cup in against Minnesota, that first playoff year, the whole year was just something. I mean, the whole playoff run was just something that I'll remember forever, because that was the first one in Pittsburgh too. Just how the whole city was behind us, and it was a good run. I think we won the last game 8-0. I think I had 17 goals in the playoffs that year. And
17. Yeah.
I think I needed a couple to tie the record. I think it was 19. And the last 2 games, I don't think I scored. We won 8-0. The last game, imagine. We won 8, and it was like
Minnesota.
We're waiting for that. We're waiting for that thing to run out. We're up 6-0 after 2. I think it was like, geez, we're gonna win our first cup here, But it was, there was a lot. In the game in Boston, it was 2-2, and I got 4 that night. With my parents there and everything. That was fun. That was, it's just there's a lot of good memories. But it was just so many good. I played with so many great guys. Even on and off the ice. Like, coming in with Cully and Rex. That was probably the ultimate dream for me. It's my 2 best friends that hung out with every single day of my life for 5 years. Did everything together. Eat, drank, slept. Whatever we were doing, we were together.
And Cully, shortest stick in the history of hockey.
Cully,
How did he play with that short wand?
God, how did he do anything? He's got 106, 7 points. Getting hit all over the place. Man, he got crushed. He's one of those guys that people just want to take runs at, because he just duck them, he missed some of that. And they hit him too. Believe me, he hit them too.
He took some hits.
Oh, he was so tough. Tough. He always wanted the puck. I love Cully because those good centermen that want the puck, those are what you want. You want
Absolutely.
in the neutral zone. If I didn't get him the puck, I heard about it.
You'd be yelling, you'd be chirping.
Yeah, and if I didn't get the puck when I was going to want to shoot it, I'd hear it too.
He'd hear about it.
So once I got it to him, he said, "I'll get the blue line. You get that. Once I get the blue line, just go.
Yep.
Take some guys with you. Open some out.
Open the ice.
Those guys just want to open up ice. And they don't take you. I'll give it to you. They take you. I'll make a play. And that's how it worked for all my centermen. They got that blue line, and they wanted me just to drive the net and take guys. We need room. That was
space.
Yeah. It's not like that really anymore. Like that. It's like guys. There's no like wing to center. Center gets the neutral zone, kind of get the blue line. Wingers drive. It's more like wanking around, chip it, get it. It's like
different game.
There's no like breakouts anymore.
No,
especially low breakouts.
No,
Well,
absolutely. It was
so
pretty much a thing of the past now.
Everything's ripping around and stand between the blue and the red. If you can't get it to someone, chip it in, and we'll go chase it. Yeah, we didn't like to give the puck away. I remember if I didn't pass it to Mario, he'd shoot it, and he'd look at me like. He'd say, you know what, you go get it. You want to dump it in?
Yeah, you're going to go get it. I'm not going to get
it. Basically how it was. You go get it, you dump it, you get it, kid.
Yeah, how could you not give it to me? That's preposterous.
I know.
Outrageous. You mentioned about toughness, and when you go look up Kevin Stevens on YouTube, and it's almost like, we had Mike Weaver, a former heavyweight champion, on the show. And it was almost like I looked it up. It's Stevens versus Weimer, Stevens versus Shanahan, Stevens versus Pearson, Stevens versus Stevens, Scott Stevens, Stevens versus the aforementioned Pylon, Zubov. Any fight, for a certain element of the hockey crowd, does any fight stand out in your career? Win or loss, I guess.
I guess
or draw.
Pilon was fun.
He was always the nemesis.
Yeah, when I was in New York, we were like, both of us were 20 points out of the playoffs. And we're playing each other second to last game of the year. And it's like Milbury's coaching the Islands. It's such a build-up. It's like we're both just trying to go home. I think I fought Pilon 3 times that night. And we were both 20 games out of the playoffs, just like playing the season out. It was a melee. The whole game was a circus, And it was kind of like, I remember that game as long as just because we're both 20 points out. It was like it was a 5-hour game, you know, within the island. Everybody, there was like 4 guys on each bench at the end of the game. You know, it was one of those nights that you remember. I remember, you know, I was with the Rangers, and Pelon, they traded for Pelon. And I was with the Rangers, and Neil Smith called me before he traded. He said, "Is it okay if we trade?"
Is it okay that we bring him on?
Yeah, he asked me that, yeah. He said, "Of course it was." And he became a good friend of mine, you know, but it was funny how that...
Well, you did become good friends as teammates.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Funny how
interesting
it
to
goes,
know.
Yeah.
After all those years.
I know.
You know? And a guy that described by none other than Mario, he described you as a beast. He said he was a beast that could shoot, he could skate, he could hit, that brought all those elements together. Really the supreme compliment from one of the greatest and the most iconic of all time. I mean, you had the whole package, Kevin. There was no question that there was nobody that was better at what you did than what you did for that 5-year period.
Yeah, I had a good little run there. Well, there was a lot of, like you said, back then there was, you know, you had Kachuk, you had Shanahan, you had Neely, right? There was a lot of good players that played the same type of game. But the best thing about, I think, back then is that, you know, you had the good centerman. Like you needed to have. If you're going to play that
Had the distributor.
Yeah, if you're going to play a power forward game, you need to play with a great centerman. You can't, like, you know, you're not playing with a third or fourth line centerman where you get the puck, you dump it in, and you got you play with a guy that wants to, like I said, with Cully. I played with Ronnie Francis. I played with Mario. Those 3 centers I played with my first. Those are my first. What was it? 10, 11 years of my career. Cully, Ronnie Francis to Mario. You know, those are 3 centers that, you know, I could never done without them. It's amazing how lucky and fortunate I was to play with those guys.
Well, some of the other comments about you, your good friend Rick Tocchet described you as the heartbeat, always the heartbeat of the team. And DeMario said he made it fun for everybody to get to the rink, and that's another supreme compliment about you. Once again, a beast who could skate, hit, and shoot. That about says it all. As we bring it full circle here, Kevin, to right now, I'm going to go back to a question that you asked in the depths of your despair, really, and in your early stages of your rehab and recovery. I think you said, I've had about 10,000 lives. That's about 9,991 more than a cat, okay? And I'm not a math guy, but I came up with that pretty good there, Big Adi. But one of the questions that you asked was, why am I here? And I know that it was noted. Do you have an answer for that now in terms of the direction of your life with Power Forward? And just give us an opportunity to talk about what Power Forward has done and what Power Forward is doing, your foundation.
Yeah, Power Forward 25 has been awesome. You know, we've so lucky to have my sister Kelly. Well, she works with me, and she's been a lifesaver on that stuff. And like Andy was a big part of it for a long time. And we put it together. We started from ground zero and built it into something that's really something that we're happy with, and we're very fortunate to be able to do what we do. You know, we actually, the biggest thing for me, Bernie, was when I went into rehab. I told you about, you know, when you're done with the rehab, when the 60 days are done, when you're locked up, you can't go out and do anything. You know, you're in a place where you're safe. Where are you gonna go after that? You know, and always, like, I went back to hockey, which for me, excuse me, wasn't good. You know, because I didn't do what I was supposed to do to work on my recovery. What we do is we help people when they get out of treatment, and we give them like 3 or 4 weeks of housing at sober houses to try to help them get readjusted back into the real world, where they can maybe get a job and get themselves going on the right path again. Because most of the people that go into these rehabs don't have family. They burnt everything. Everything's done. Addiction takes and takes and takes and takes no more, right?
They have no support system.
Yeah, they have no support system. Addiction just keeps taking. And when you end up in those rehabs, it's pretty much taking everything from you. So now you got to start over again, you know? So you need to start fresh. And there's a lot of people have no money. A lot of people have no family. A lot of people have nothing. So what we do is try to help them get housing, and we get them into places. And we've helped 175 people so far get into housing and get scholarships for a month or so, and get their lives back on track. And I think that's a big part of what we do. And I think you know, just get sending the message out there and kind of living the way you're supposed to live, and it's trying to help people the best way you can help them. And I think, you know, we're always out there to help people, and it's just, you know, trying to spread the message. Sometimes it's just, like you said, going to a school, or just going somewhere for 10 minutes and talking. I talked to some union people the other day. It's just just sharing anything I say, I went through. It has nothing. I'm not telling you anything that I didn't experience most of the time. How this happened to me. I was on top of the world. I was a first-team All-Star, back-to-back Stanley Cups, going for our third cup, and I fell into this trap. I made a decision that night, and then it took me down that path. And I was on top of the world. Like I always used to say, if you wanted someone's life when that happened, you wanted my life. I had the perfect. What else could I'm playing left side with Mario Lemieux as a hockey player.
Yeah.
I got my wife takes care of everything. She's the best.
Three kids.
Yeah, three. My kids weren't born yet, but I have 3 kids, great kids now. But it was just, what other, what could you want? And then 2 years later, I'm fighting this addiction thing to the full tilt. It came from that one decision that night that I made in New York to try that cocaine, and then obviously I got hurt. And maybe I don't know how. I don't know if there's anything connected with that. Who knows, right? Who knows what God's acting like, right? I don't know, but it all went from like I said, top of the world to falling off a cliff, and you can see my career. It's 7 years that night in New York City, in 7 years. It's just like a big, a big circle. It's kind of chews you up and eats you up until you stop it. Addiction, like I said, that's why we give these people this housing with our foundations, because you don't stop in the middle.
Right.
It's not like, some people, if you get lucky enough and you can put a halt to it, but most people have to have enough pain and enough damage to finally say, enough's enough.
Right.
And that's when's that point, and it's like most people get to that point when they have nothing, Thank God I didn't get to the point where I had nothing. I still had some, I still had support, I still had family, which is great, but how much can they help an addict till the addict wants to help them? They can't, it's impossible, it's impossible to show the support and love that you want to do when someone's out and blown out, full-blown addiction. It's hard.
Tragic. Absolutely. Kevin, thanks very much. The foundation is Power Forward. We urge everybody to check your website as far as supporting the Power Forward Foundation. And you're available, as you mentioned, to go and to speak and to tell your story, which is certainly a compelling one and a cautionary tale. Mm-hmm. And dare I say it, we talked about, at the beginning, I said about fulfilling the American dream and surviving and enduring this American tragedy. I mean, America loves a second act. And your second act now, I'm going to say, you're living an American dream right now, once again, in terms of survival and what you're doing now, powering forward with your organization and all the good that you're doing in terms of giving back.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. Buddy.
Tremendous.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, bro.
Great to have you with us here today.
You guys. Thanks.
Great start here to our third season of Games People Play. And I want to thank Kevin Stevens, our guest, and once again, the organization is Power Forward. And I want to thank Wendy Galini for hosting us here and providing a new home for us here at Tony C's in the Seaport. And I'm not going to say, I almost said Kevin's former partner in crime. That wouldn't sound right. Andy Bernstein, who was the co-host of, no, that really wouldn't sound right. That's why we got another. The co-host of Cross-Check Radio with you. And for about, 2-3 year period that you guys had a great run together. And my co-founder and the producer of Games People Play. And so for Andy Bernstein and our guest here today, Kevin Stevens, and everybody here at Tony C's, the new home of Games People Play, this is Bernie Corbett saying, play the game well, everyone.
And we're out.